call the recess meeting of February 9th to order, and for the purpose of taking care of case number TA 1903. It's a text amendment to Unified Development Ordinance amending Article 10, permissible users in the districts to establish supplemental regulations governing short-term rentals in Article 11, Section 180.14. And Ms. Knight, if you will take over for, have you received any written comments from the public?
Have not received written comments from the public.
Okay, all right. Does anybody have any discussion on that?
I'd like to make a few comments that I could, Mayor.
Okay.
On some of my feelings here, some of my thoughts on this. I would like to thank everyone, particularly the planning board and the council and the staff for the effort in developing these additions to our Unified Development Ordinance. Coming up with a way of both protecting and dealing with the advantages of a short-term rental is a challenging task. I have no problem with the homestays and with the accessory housing as presented in the ordinance. I have a problem with the whole house facilities in commercial zones, neighborhood or downtown commercial zones. But I do have a concern with putting whole house rentals into residential neighborhoods. My concern is this. Basically, whole house rentals are businesses and do not belong in a residential area. They're there to make a profit. A residential neighborhood is there to provide security and a sense of belonging that invites people in return to give back to the community. I think if we begin to put businesses in residential areas, we're killing the goose that laid the golden egg. I think we need to value the goose more than the egg. We've had a difficult year in Edenton. Every town has. But we've come through. We've gone through an election that's very divisive. We've gone through different attitudes toward dealing with COVID-19 that's been divisive. But we've stayed together as a community because I think we have one thing in common, and that's our commitment to Edenton. Since the community has been able to override all the other differences that we have, and it's kept us together. There are other areas that we can think about for handling the many tourists and being kind to the tourists that come to our community and to the visitors. The Hinton Hotel is one that we need to push a lot harder than we pushed. I think in our packet, in our agenda, there are two choices given to us about the future of whole house short-term rentals. We can either have them go through the administrative process of being certified, or we can have them come with a special permit use through the Board of Adjustment. I would like to add a third. We can say no. That's not given to us, but we can say no, that we don't feel that whole house short-term rentals belong in our neighborhoods. So today I'd like to invite you to join me in saying no to that option, to coming together and saying we value our neighborhoods, we value the goose before the egg, and we don't want to be accused of being the group that killed the goose. So I invite you to join with me tonight in giving serious thought to prohibiting whole house short-term rentals in our neighborhood residential areas. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any further discussion from any of the other council members?
Just one thought. Let's say this is approved, down the road, we will have the opportunity to make changes or adjustments here and there. Is that correct? Was it, there'll be issues come up with the B&B people and the short-term rental people that maybe we haven't heard of yet. And that could come to us at a later date to make changes. That's available to us down the road.
I sort of, I mean, I talked to Roger about this, and I mean, I can see that there could be some abuses, and, you know, that it could upset tranquility in neighborhoods, but I do think that the things we've got in place now are a good beginning, and then if it does start to be a real problem, I think we can then take action at that point. I think it's sort of a balancing act right now. I mean, you know, but I certainly understand what you're
I
saying.
understand where you're coming in.
Yeah.
Mayor, I know we've been working on this, what, 3-4 years, Elizabeth? It's Elizabeth.
Yes.
Okay. It says Virginia on your picture. And I agree with Roger said, Elizabeth, Anne Marie, the entire planning board has worked hard on this over the years. And I think it's about time we got this thing moving. So I just want to mention that.
But didn't we have a lady to come into the board last year? That a house next to her was being rented, and she was having all kinds of problems, with disturbance, noise.
Yes, you did.
Okay,
Those people.
so why not address it now? And to prevent neighbors like that from having to go through that, because none of us would want a house right up on us where it's being rented, and you got folks having parties and a whole lot of noise and trash and everything all over the yard. So instead of passing the buck over, let's nip it in the bud right now.
And once it's approved, it would be hard to take it out. For example, following up on what Councilman Miller said, once we approve one, wouldn't it be hard to come back and take it away? I'm asking a question, I don't know the answer to it.
I think, Elizabeth, can you address that, that if there was, repeated problems at a whole house, what the procedure would be?
Well, there's a couple of options. One, in our ordinance, we do have a provision that if there are repeated issues, their permit can be revoked. That's in the draft ordinance. The other option is if you wanted to make an amendment to this ordinance, you would do that through your traditional text amendment process, which is 4 times a year, unless it's an emergency. So you would have the opportunity 4 times a year to make changes to the ordinance.
And Mayor, I've got a question. I guess it would be best posed to Anne Marie and also Elizabeth. Is anecdotally, just in my own mind, I feel like Councilman Bond, that we have the most problems out of whole house Airbnbs and whole house short-term rentals. Is that correct, or is that just a assumption that we're all making? It feels like that to me. Elizabeth, is that correct?
We do have mostly whole house. In your packet, I'm not sure if it got in your packet or if it was shown at the last meeting, we showed a map as of last year of our entire short-term rentals in the town, and most of them were whole house rentals. Now, some of those would be apartments above a business downtown, and those would be permitted as a zoning use by right, even in any scenario as it's currently drafted. The ones that are in residential districts would have to apply for a special use permit under the current draft. If you decided to limit them completely in residential districts, we did get advice from the School of Government that we would need to grandfather those that are existing, meaning they would stay in operation unless they ceased operation with the clear intent to no longer operate that way. Sort of hard to
No, you quoted that
quantify, but let's say somebody sold the house and then it was occupied as a single family residence, they would lose that grandfathering. But if somebody put their house on the the market and it was an Airbnb, and the buyer wanted to continue as an Airbnb, then that would be clear intent that they wanted to continue to operate that way.
And if you will, refresh my recollection, I think you just said that as amended, the ordinance that's proposed and before us does have some mechanisms that if somebody abuses their right to operate their whole house, that we can revoke things, or there are penalties, or there are things that we can do to address that. Is that
Right.
correct?
They would have to be found in noncompliance with the ordinance. And I believe that there are like stipulations to how many times that can happen, and then their permit would be revoked.
Elizabeth, going back to what
Yes.
Councilman Bond brought up about the lady and the issue with the noise next door to her. If that happened again somewhere else, could that homeowner call the designated party of the house that's making the noise? And don't those people have to be within so many miles? I think it's within 30 minutes, they would come back and correct the issue. Is that?
That's right. So there's a residency, or a time period, I think it's 30 minutes,
Yes.
where they would have to be able to respond, and that's the designated responsible party. It could either be the owner, if they are the one that can respond within 30 minutes, or someone here in Edenton that would be able to respond immediately.
They would have to live within 5 miles of the rental. Okay.
That's right.
Mayor, can I, Elizabeth or Hood, can you speak to, sorry to take my mask off, the comment that we received from Rebecca Badgett about if the council were to vote to prohibit short-term whole house rentals in the residential zones? I just want to make sure we all understand that if those existing whole houses would get to continue. The ordinance, the action, if Councilman Coleman's recommendation is approved, would only apply to future whole house rentals?
That's right. So her advice, and Hood, please chime in, her advice was that those that are existing would be grandfathered because they're a pre-existing use.
They would be,
I would agree with what Elizabeth's saying and what Rebecca said. The only thing we could do differently is to have some sort of amortization schedule where gradually we phase the whole house out, but that might be problematic.
Okay, does anyone have anything further to add or discuss about this?
I've just got a procedural question addressed to Hood and also to Roger. Roger, is that a motion that we vote on the proposed ordinance with your suggested amendments? And do we need a second for that? Where are we procedurally? You've raised some concerns, and we are in a recessed meeting. We're about to vote on this. So maybe Hood can help us procedurally, or you can help us as to what your intent is, Roger.
My intent is to recommend that this council approve the amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance, less the stipulation that allows whole house short-term rentals in residential areas. Is that clear?
I think it is. Again, I just wanted to make sure we understood what the intent was.
And the whole house, existing whole house rental would be grandfathered in, is that what I hear? It would-
And that's what the school of government says, that if we adopt this ordinance and delete whole house rentals, that the ones that exist will continue to exist under, because they're lawful today. We can't make them unlawful.
I understand that.
Would we need to re-advertise this, because if the people that were thinking about having whole house rentals they thought they were just getting regulated this way, and all of a sudden they're not allowed anymore? I mean, I'm just wondering if that's something that people would be interested in coming in. Nobody came in and said anything, but you know, if we knew that was part of it, I mean, would we
You
hear from them?
say we're changing horses in
Yeah,
this stream.
we're changing horses right at the, the end of the stream.
My suggestion, if I may, would be, because we would have to reword that last section on grandfathering or non-conforming situation, would be to consider sending it back to staff to redraft that language and then re-advertise with the new language so that folks can hear and read what the proposal is and then provide input.
I would feel better if everybody could have input, but my question would be, would we still have two choices, the text amendments as written tonight versus the text amendment that Councilman Coleman has recommended, and we get to choose between the two of those? Because I'm not sure if I'm not sure if we got a majority that would necessarily agree with Councilman Coleman. I'm not trying to muddy everything, I just want to make sure we're clear on what we're doing.
Well, I think we can present both drafts, and it probably would be, we get a lot of feedback, I'm not sure. Okay. What I would suggest, to make sure that people are aware, is that we would notify the realtors. You know, you may have somebody who is looking to make a purchase of a house for a whole house rental. And that would give us the opportunity to make sure people are aware.
And just and I apologize for being hyper-technical on this, one question that I would have and would hope that we'd have it resolved by the time we voted on it is, since it's a text amendment, would we have to have a supermajority to pass it on the first reading, or would we have to have two readings of it if it didn't pass by supermajority? And I don't know if Hood could help us out with that between now and next meeting.
Sure, we'll make sure we address that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I would assume it could be adopted on the first reading where it's been introduced and we've, been talking about it. It's not something that's come up tonight for the first time.
I would think so too, Hood. But yeah, if we could find out about that, it would be helpful.
Well, we've had plenty of discussion, and we have a motion on the floor. Does anybody want to second the motion for purpose of the discussion, or move on, or? I guess I'm asking for a point of contact.
So I think you would need a motion to direct staff to make the necessary amendments that Councilman Coleman has asked for, and to work with Hood to present a draft of what.
So I withdraw my original motion in order to have staff prepare two possibilities. Is that right?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
that would.
Thank you, that's good.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a second to the second motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so at this point, Anne Marie, I'm assuming that we need to just recess this meeting again?
Elizabeth, do you recommend that we would re-advertise, or do we want to just try to keep this as a recess
Yeah, I
meeting?
think that's probably smart that it be said, obviously, good to come in, but then we can post ordinance drafts on the website and get it out to affected parties, but we don't necessarily have to go through the full re-advertisement process.
Is this something that we can take care of tomorrow night at our meeting? No, okay, all right. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to recess this meeting until we can get a better reading on what we're.
So moved.
Okay.
Let's recess it to a specific date, 'cause
Want to do
want to try to do
council
the March
9th?
9th meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
March 9th? Okay.
Make a motion.
Councilman Miller made a motion that we recess this meeting until a date certain of March the 9th. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we will recess this meeting until March the 9th, when we have our regular meeting. Okay. So now we will call the special meeting to order to handle case number CUP 21-01, a conditional use permit application for Statesville Barn Company LLC for operation of a business constructing storage sheds as well as wholesale and retail distribution of said storage sheds at 1365 North Broad Street. And I believe that is the old Edenton Motors property owned by Nancy Down.
And Your Honor, I've been.
You're on.
Mayor, I've got a request to recuse myself,
Okay.
so my firm's involved in.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to recuse Councilman.
And before we vote on that, Councilman Dixon and also Mayor and I go to church together, and one time they asked me to give the prayer in Sunday school, and I said, let us bow our heads, and I said, Your Honor. I've been in court all week long, and I still had Your Honor on my mind, so stand by, I've been there.
Okay, can we do both of those at once, Anne Marie, or do we need to do them separately? Okay, we have a motion on the floor then to recuse Councilman Dixon and Councilman High.
Oh, no, I don't need to be recused, but I was just,
Are you done?
Don't you
I
represent
thought you were representing the.
Sally?
oh, that's correct, yes, absolutely, thank you, thank you.
Yes or no?
Yes, yes, I need to be recused for the same reason, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Councilman Dixon and Councilman Hyde, you are recused from this voting at this time.
Got rid of all the lawyers. You got rid of all the lawyers.
Some people would say that's a good thing.
Mayor, does this mean they don't have to come tomorrow night?
Yeah.
No, it does not mean that.
Okay.
Okay, Elizabeth, would you like to present the staff report on this?
Certainly, and my apologies again for being via Zoom for another staff report. Hopefully in March, I'll be able to be in person to deliver these to you all. But I'd ask that my staff report be entered into the record, and given that, I will do a summary because it's a lot easier via Zoom rather than reading it into the record completely. You are correct, Mayor, that the application is from Statesville Barn Company, and it is regarding the property at 1365 North Broad Street that is currently owned by Ms. Nancy Downham. They're requesting a conditional use permit for the operation of a business constructing storage sheds as well as the wholesale and retail distribution of those storage sheds in the IW Industrial Warehouse District. The property is the former site of Edenton Motor Company, which is currently vacant. You're all very familiar with the surrounding property. We've got both undeveloped and highway commercial property to the north, as well as industrial warehouse. The railroad track runs behind the property. To the south, the property is also undeveloped as in crop production agriculturally, but there are some single-family residents developed there. To the east, the property is highway commercial and industrial warehouse. That includes Winborn Accounting and the Peanut Drive Industrial Park. To the west, the property is both undeveloped, a vacant wooded lot, and highway commercial, the Dollar General. The existing land use plan has several goals and policy statements that are related to this parcel. It identifies it as currently commercial and existing land use, and the future land use classification is industrial. The applicable goal statements are Goal 2, E2, to promote the establishment of a broad range of new commercial uses in the town, both in the downtown core and on the periphery near Highway 17 interchanges, with particular emphasis on grocery and restaurants. And Goal E4, to develop a strategy for expanding job opportunities in healthcare, tourism, and vocational training sectors. The policy statements that apply are Policy E3. The town of Edenton encourages new commercial uses to locate in any commercial area within the town. And Policy E6, the town is supportive of cottage industry entrepreneurship and will put into place standards that require those industries that may have adverse effects such as noise or traffic on neighboring properties to mitigate these effects. There is no zoning history on record. Municipal and water and sewer services are available. The property is within the town's corporate limits, and town protection services are available. It has 810 feet of frontage. There's a map that shows an aerial photo of 1365 North Broad Street in the staff report that was included in your packet. And again, they're requesting to operate as a wholesale and retail distribution center for the wooden storage sheds, as well as the construction of those storage sheds on the industrial warehouse property. The conditional use permit process requires applicants to specify the exact proposed land use as the applicant has done, and the town council is able to place restrictions on the actual development according to reasonable requirements that may be added, in addition to the concerns that are typical for your consideration, which is that the property or the development of the property, 1, will not endanger the public health or safety, 2, that it will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting property, 3, that it will be in harmony with the area in which it is located, and 4, that it will be in conformity with the land use plan, thoroughfare plan, or other plan officially adopted by the town council. The planning board met on February 1st and unanimously recommended approval of the conditional use permit application to the town council. I'm not sure if we have a representative, Mr. Winborn, here tonight, or a representative of the company, but they may be present via Zoom and can answer questions. The staff found that the proposed use is compatible with the Edenton future land use map, and that the land use map and land use plan identifies this parcel and the surrounding area as compatible for industrial use. The entire property is classified as industrial. That classification, industrial, occupies about 10% of the town's planning jurisdiction. It's located primarily right in this area, north of downtown, near the Peanut Drive Industrial Park, as well as around the airport. The staff offers 5 conditions for your consideration. One, that all necessary traffic improvements, utility installations and connections, that would be electric, water, and sewer, are built to town standard, and that any drainage or stormwater detention improvements shall be installed by the developer. The stormwater and drainage plan shall meet any required NCDOT and NCDEQ regulations. Any additional driveways should be permitted by NCDOT. Final landscape plan should be reviewed and approved by the Town of Edenton Tree Committee, and all details or improvements, including any changes to the facade, signage, sidewalks, infrastructure, landscaping, and street lighting shall be involved according to UDO requirements. The last section of my staff report includes a statement for you. If you find that the permit is one that you want to approve, you need to state that it's in conformity with your land use plan, and this gives you an example for that. And so that's a summary of the staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone have any questions of Elizabeth on this? Elizabeth, you did a great job. Thank you so very much. And we do have with us tonight Attorney Faison Winborn, who is with the gentleman that's opening the company. Would you like to address the council, sir?
Yes, if I could, Mr. Mayor,
You would?
and I'll be as brief as any lawyer has ever been. I think Elizabeth summarized a lot of that very well. A couple things I want to point out about the sort of the goals of what my client, Mr. Turner, who is the manager member of the Statesville Barn Company, was not able to be here tonight. He said he's willing to answer any questions in person by email or Zoom, however, he just couldn't be here tonight. A couple things. It is to build these storage sheds. They're going to be 8 by 10, 10 by 12, that size. They will make bigger ones, but they're going to be built on site. The ones that you would see at the site will be put on a flatbed and sent to a dealer distributor network in the area. That's what their business plan is looking like. It is going to employ, he estimates, 10 to 20 people at various jobs in the construction, loading, and delivery of these items. So we'll bring some employment to the area. At this time, he doesn't anticipate any signage on the property in the sense that, and we've heard the word retail. He's not really a retailer in the sense that he's not going to be out there hawking sheds. There's a guy over here at Berry Hill that does that, and I think he's on that network. But he's mainly a wholesaler of a construction and assembly plant there. That's what he's going to do. He did say if you walked up and said, I want that shed, here's $800, he will sell you the shed. But that's not his main goal at this site. The signage issue he may have, he's not going to have a sign like you would for a retail establishment, but he may want to put something on the building. I understand he'll have to have that passed muster by the town before he can do something like that. The other two issues that, I'm trying to anticipate issues is traffic. He anticipates 4 to 6 trucks per day coming in and out at peak times. The other issue would be landscaping. He does plan to comply with anything the town. He wants to go ahead and put a landscaping border in the roadway, or between the roadway and where his shop will be back there, which he plans to use the existing structures. So that when you ride in the street, you're not going to see a bunch of construction stuff.
Will all the structures there be utilized? The showroom?
Yes.
Garage?
His intent is to use all of that either for construction or at various stages, because they have to paint them and that kind of thing coming out.
If somebody in the area was interested in purchasing the shed, he's not going to turn the person away.
Right, but that's, like I said, I asked him that specifically early on. I was like, is this a retail outlet or is this wholesale, and he said, well, it's mainly wholesale. But, you know, if somebody really wants a shed, they come up and I'll sell them a shed, so.
Basically, I just have,
Oh, I'm sorry.
how large a company is Statesville Wine? I mean, do they have many locations, a few locations?
They are, it's really two companies. I mean, without getting into weeds on this, they're a North Carolina limited liability company, Statesville Bar Company.
Right.
One of the owners lives in Gig, Washington, out in the state of Washington. So, but they don't do barns out there necessarily. He's, Mr. Turner, who's the main manager member of
Yeah.
this company, wants to keep this as a regional deal. So he anticipates mainly distributions in this area, Virginia and South Carolina.
Okay. I looked them up, and I get old Hickory Barns, I mean, just get a lot of names
Well,
there and
it's-
such.
It's several owners of several different business entities all working together.
I saw Statesville, I thought this was a North Carolina company, but it's not.
Well,
Yeah.
it is incorporated, or not incorporated, but it's organized here in North Carolina.
But they're out of, the owner's out of Washington.
Well, one of the owners is out of Washington, one of them is in Cookeville, Tennessee. So,
Any other questions of Mr. Winborn? Okay, at this
I'm just
time,
glad to see that property utilized. I mean, it's good to have a business out there now. It's sitting vacant for quite a while.
well, I see, there's another company out there that's utilizing the part of the property now. Will that still be there as well?
well, yeah, there's a lease with Piedmont Natural Gas. They use it for what's called a laydown yard. That's that fenced in area in the back. They anticipate, I mean, Statesville's gonna buy the property. They're gonna assume that lease and the duties and obligations under it. They will also, I believe, renew that at least for 1 or 2 terms maybe, but eventually that probably won't be there. It's gonna be all Statesville.
Mayor, I need to ask advice from the town attorney. Hood, I forgot to remind the mayor, or I forgot to ask the mayor to swear in Faison and anybody from the public that wanted to give testimony. Can he do that? Can the mayor do that retroactively?
You mean to ask for a public hearing now?
Well, normally, we would have sworn Faison in because he, submitted testimony to the council. And then
Right.
also, we would need to, ask the mayor to swear anyone who's, wants to have questions.
And I think it'd be fine for him to do it retroactively and just get Faison to swear in and say that what he said is truthful.
Mr. Faison, would you? You solemnly swear that the information that you have given us is true to the best of your knowledge.
It is.
Thank you, sir.
And Mayor, normally the council's procedures under the state of emergency does not allow you to take, questions via Zoom. But I don't see anybody here, there's nobody in the overflow room who wanted to speak. I do know that there is an adjoining property owner on the call, and the adjoining property owner participated in the planning board Zoom meeting. But if, Mr. Ragland had questions or comments, he's welcome to email to me, and then according to our procedures, when you reconvene, hopefully tomorrow night, then I would read into the record comments that he presented.
Okay. All right, as Ms. Knight has told us, we cannot take sworn comment tonight from the public, so we have to leave it open for 24 hours. And you can, anybody that wants to comment upon this can do so by email to Mrs. Knighton by 6 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, or is it 5 o'clock? By 5 p.m. tomorrow. And then we will reconvene tomorrow night at 6 o'clock to vote on this. So.
And the council's welcome to ask any questions of Faison or Elizabeth tonight, or Hood.
I guess you don't have to come.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions from up here? Okay.
Do you have, I guess, once the permit is there, do you have a timeline when you can start building out that property?
Well, we're trying to close all the real estate deal Friday, so if that tells you anything, we're trying to move this along and get it done as quickly as possible. And he's eager to get all the property and start working.
Does he have a build-out date in mind in the future? Does he?
He hasn't told me a specific date.
Okay, so as previously stated, we cannot vote on this tonight, so I will need a motion to table this until tomorrow night at 6 p.m.
Mayor, I move that we recess this particular meeting till February 23rd, which is tomorrow.
Okay, we have a motion, do we need a second?
So
We have a motion and a second to.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table this motion till tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Councilman.
Okay, the next item is the bid award for riprap replacement for Edenton Bay, East Water Street, and FEMA Hurricane Dorian project. And Ms. Knighton, I'll call on you to take that.
So we're really excited, thanks to the hard work of Bud Powell and Corey Gooden and Virginia Smith, working with our FEMA partners. We have funding secured to pay to hire a contractor to replace riprap, which has washed away from the shoreline of Edenton Bay. That's the area from the Elizabeth Van Moore Park to about the Edenton office supply property on East Water Street. We solicited quotes for the work, and TJ Marine, who is the contractor working for us at the bulkhead, is the low bidder. And Corey and Bud recommended that the council supplement the work. FEMA would only pay for what was there prior to Hurricane Dorian. And prior to Hurricane Dorian, many years, I think it was back around 2008 or 2009, when we installed that riprap, we thought that we only needed it in certain parts of the shoreline. And Corey and Bud are recommending that we add riprap to locations that previously didn't have riprap. And so Virginia has prepared a budget amendment, and that would appropriate funding from fund balance and transfer that into the FEMA capital project ordinance that you have previously adopted. So we would recommend approval of that, and we're asking for you to do that tonight because TJ Marine is here, mobilized, and they're hopefully going to be able to finish up the bulkhead work really soon, and it would be helpful to have all of what he has mobilized out of here, along with whatever he's going to have to do with the riprap as soon as possible.
Any questions or comments from Ms. Knighton on this riprap?
I have one question. There were 4 parts to the FEMA project, right? And WAF had 3 bids that were low, and TJ's 1. Why were they separated out? Why couldn't there have been just one one bid for all four?
That's a good
It
question.
just seems like there's a lot of work to do for these different things, and when they were really just one project.
Yes, we were hoping that we were gonna get more than 2 bidders. We thought if we got, and we did ask for, I think, a 3rd bidder. And anyway, we just thought we were trying to get the best prices possible. And we thought if we broke the project up, we might get better pricing.
Yeah,
It turns out that they were, as you saw, it was just extremely competitive. There
Uh-huh.
was not much dollars between TJ Marine and WAF's proposal.
And you've worked with TJ Marine in the past?
They have done this bulkhead. I think somebody else did the other bulkhead, but TJ Marine had worked with, I think, our engineers and had done a good job. But no, that's a good question about why didn't we just do it as one project?
Any further questions or comments?
Mayor, I recommend we award the bid to TJ Marine.
Okay, is there a motion?
This motion.
Okay, we have a motion, do we get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And the next item is the budget amendment for the same. And where you got any
That's-
further comments or?
Just again, FEMA is funding $22,128, and we're asking the council to appropriate $7,100 to allow us to add more shoreline protection.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
So,
Second.
have a motion and a second to approve the budget amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion's carried. The next item is the Old Hertford Road drainage improvements. And I'll call on Ms. Knighton again. Corey, if he's available.
Yep, Corey's on with us tonight, and Corey can give you a little bit of a background of what SEPI Engineering is going to do for us. And the action item before you tonight is to authorize the engineering agreement with SEPI, and that there are funds available within the budget for the engineering work, and then also we kind of have an estimate of what the cost will be for the installation of the improvement, and there are funds available also. So Corey, do you want to summarize what we hope to gain from SEPI's work?
Yes, and we did reach out to the folks at SEP just to give a little bit of background work on. We are finalizing some of the mapping and design that we had did for the phase 1 and phase 2 for the condition assessment. Knowing some of the changes that we had found with the initial phase 1 and phase 2, we wanted to reach back out to these guys to also help us with the, what we're looking at is a choke point. So we met with the reps from SEPI, and we reviewed a lot of the data that they had already collected when they did the condition assessment. And based on the additional knowledge around those stormwater systems that we gained from their assessment, we felt that it was best to continue working with them on the improvements there, because we have made some improvements over the last 2 years, particularly in Coke Avenue, Oakdale, Tyler Lane, as well as some of the properties that are north of currently where the rec department soccer fields are. So taking all that into consideration, we reached back out to those guys to try to help us identify what is the best fix for that area. you know, we've got a good working relationship now. We've used their data as well as what we got from the stormwater feasibility study with the guys from the Wooten Company. And I think with all that good information, they'll be able to really provide us with recommendations and costs to make these improvements. And I mean, that's kind of the background on where we are with this proposal and what kind of got us to this point. Currently, you know, there are 2 pipes that are there. They appear to be undersized, but when we look at just the acreage that system drains from Coke Avenue towards Old Hertford, what we call Old Hertford South, and then as it feeds out towards Queen Anne tributary, you know, there's quite a bit of water that moves through that system, and knowing that we've got a good relationship with these guys, a good amount of data to work through, it just made the most sense to continue on. It's a relatively low cost option, working with these guys, and hopefully we will find that the improvements will also be a low cost option. And we have already reached out to a certain few vendors that we work with for stormwater improvements to try to at least kind of preview with them what's to come. And once we get those pipe sizes in, we should have pricing on the actual installation of those larger pipes that will really help what we're seeing there on Old Hertford.
Corey, have you had a chance to communicate this with Ms. Godfrey at all?
I have not. We did meet with myself and the representatives from SEPI when we were actually doing our initial field survey work. We did speak with some of the homeowners in that area, including her, but we haven't notified her of what the improvements are going forward because we were really waiting for recommendations to come in on the pipe size.
So I did have a chance to talk to Ms. Godfrey late last week, and I explained to her, because we had previously thought another solution was going to work, but when SEPI came in, they said, you know, we would get more bang for our buck removing the choke area. So I did review that with Ms. Godfrey, and over the weekend I sent her a copy of the proposal.
Would there be an engineer that would draw up a drainage plan, where the water, when they do this, where the water is going to? Because the road is northwest end is high, up there by 17. And it's a long way to the river.
So it will be engineered.
Yes. So we will receive engineering recommendations on these. They will also try to help identify the different year storm systems that we're looking at, similar to what we did some years back on what we call here Old Hertford North, where we made improvements, which we've seen really good results from those, and they will try to scale out based on 25-year storms, 50-year storms, 100-year storms. We will see what that system's designed to do, how it compares to the potential rainfall from each of 25, 50, and 100-year storms, and then from that data we will look back at what we've seen going forward or from the past, try to map that out going forward to find something that's the best fit for what we typically see in that area. We've worked in this area for about 2 years now, making improvements north of here, and we still have just a few small items to address, but we do want to make sure that everything that's clean and really moving really getting to that point of backing up. And so we should get the results we're hoping for once we get these recommendations. And we're trying to run parallel with SEPI by already reaching out to contractors and let them at least have an idea where the work's being performed, what the scope is looking like, and at least letting them get familiar with what our plans are. And we'll review that data with them once we get it, and we have also kind of shared with them what we've seen in the past with similar size stormwater systems on Old Hertford, because it does have quite a large footprint of drainage that makes its way through there.
Okay, any further questions of Corey or Anne Marie on this? If not, I will entertain a motion to,
So moved.
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next is, item on our list is a resolution of support for the new John A. Holmes High School project. And Ms. Lane, I'll call on you to.
Sure, thanks, Mayor. So, we have prepared a resolution for you to consider tonight, expressing appreciation and support for all the work that the Board of Education and Dr. Sasser and the architects have done to solicit community input and to listen and then to create the 3 storybooks, the 3 renderings of the proposed new school, which I hope you've all had a chance to look at. I think the 3 designs reflect what we heard from the community about what they wanted to see on the campus. We're also pleased to see the way the architect proposes, God bless you, to relocate the tennis courts, to relocate the Reverend Griffin playground that the town is responsible for, and also the Boy Scout hut, and putting all of those 3 community-type facilities in the same area near the softball field. I think it just solidifies that the high school is a community campus, and those facilities being located all together like that, I think is going to create more access, easier access, and will, especially too with the Boys and Girls Club being so close, I just see a lot of synergy and a lot of good things for what the council has been trying to accomplish in terms of revitalizing the North Oakham Street corridor, revitalizing North Edenton. I think all of those things are going to benefit from this proposed plan. So the next step, I believe the the Board of Ed have a meeting maybe tomorrow, and then there's the joint committee between the Board of Ed and the commissioners. They're meeting this week. I think the architects are finalizing the survey, the result of the surveys. People got a chance to actually, vote or express an opinion of which of the 3 renderings they preferred. And I think the plan is for in early March for the Board of Ed to make a decision on which rendering to move forward with. So it's very exciting, and I know the council and other partners worked really hard to advocate for the John A. Holmes High School to stay in Edenton on that footprint, and I think a resolution of support just reinforces how important it is for the high school to remain a part of Edenton.
Thank you, Anne Marie, and I agree with you in that a lot of people have done a lot of work on that project, and if you have not been down and looked at those renderings and all, you owe it to yourself to go down there and look at them. They've really done a good job, and the engineers have spent a lot of time. Board of Education has spent a lot of time, and county commissioners, and they've all come together and done a great job, I think. So, Do we don't have a resolution to vote on, or do we?
I thought I put
Yeah, you got
resolution.
Yeah, there's one in the packet.
Yes.
Oh,
You
okay.
gotta draft the resolution.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, and the next item is revised capital project ordinance runway 1-19 pavement and lighting rehabilitation. And again, I'll call on Ms. Knight.
Sure, and this is just a minor correction. When we submitted the capital project to you for approval at your February 9th meeting, we did not include in the revenue item the local match, which is being funded by the state. We just included the federal match, but there's about $33,000 that's going to come from the state grant, and Virginia caught that oversight and has prepared a correction for you. So we ask that you adopt the revised capital project ordinance as presented.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, the next is our committee meetings. Oh, excuse me, we need to recess this meeting until tomorrow afternoon at 6 o'clock, February 23rd, so I will entertain a motion to.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we're going to recess the meeting until Tuesday, the 23rd, which is tomorrow. All right, the next is our committee meetings, and the first on the agenda is Public Works, and that's chaired by Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. We have two items of business, one being the revised engineering services agreement, renovations and upgrade wastewater treatment plant. Mayor, as you know, the town has received a $2 million grant and a $4 million loan from the USDA to fund renovations and upgrades to our existing wastewater treatment plant. The USDA has requested us to revise the existing engineering services agreement and amend it into one engineering service agreement document that includes current USDA required language. Public Works Committee would like to request we forward this revised engineering service agreement to full council for action. Number two, no parking zone East Queen Street. A citizen by the name of Virginia Tan, who resides at 402 East Queen Street, contacted me about 2 weeks ago and requested the council consider creating a no parking zone at the end of the 200 block of East Queen Street near the intersection of East Queen and South Oakland to help alleviate a consistent traffic gauntlet that's ever present near the existing stop sign. And this is located right to the side of former Mayor Roy Harrell's house. I understand, according to our town code, there is a provision that calls for no parking 75 feet from an intersection. So with that said, no action will be required.
I think it's 35 feet, isn't it?
I'm sorry, I got it wrong in the agenda review memo. I
It's
checked
35,
it, it's
okay.
30 feet.
30 feet.
30
Okay.
feet, yes.
Okay, right. 30 feet. So no action will be required by council. Public Works will handle this.
Yes.
And I'd like to suggest something, Emery. Have you all gotten away from yellow traffic paint identifying a no parking area? Corey, is he?
He's still on.
Okay. That would be an ideal place to put that, maybe instead of a stencil.
He's back.
He's still there.
Corey, are you all still using?
No,
No?
we do. We have not gotten away from that.
Okay.
We typically like to start with signage. The only time that we would mark curbing to identify no parking with the yellow paint would be if it requested to be used in stenciling rather than some type of sign. Maybe there's a aesthetic reason that a sign's not appropriate. But I mean, we have the option to do either or. Signs usually get a little more attention than the curb. But we do have the ability to do both. I mean, whichever we choose.
Whatever you choose, okay. I think it would be noticeable there on that stop sign.
Okay, that's not a problem.
Okay, the next on our agenda is the administrative committee, and that's chaired by Councilman Hyde.
Thank you, Mayor Stallings. We have five items to discuss tonight. The first one is approval of athletic accomplishment signs. The athletic department at the high school has asked for us to consider 4 signs, basically the gateways to town, and Anne Marie is still discussing the specific locations of that. And the sign would acknowledge the accomplishments of a number of teams from Chilliwack County that have won championships over the years, including the 9 titles won by the Edenton Homes football team, the 2019 Edenton Homes track state champions, the Edenton Homes baseball state champions from 2017, and also it's noteworthy that it would also honor the D.F. Walker high school football team from 1968 to 1969. I know the athletic director was unable to be here tonight, but he can be with us via Zoom at our next meeting, and we would just recommend that this move forward for vote and approval at our regular meeting coming up in March. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Did you say anything about the '69 championship team?
Yeah, 68, 69,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Is there somebody here that was on that team?
On that team.
No, I noted it especially for you, that it's definitely gonna be part of the sign, to honor that. So we got you covered on that. The second matter is the,
Hi,
yes.
I'm sorry. Nancy, did you want to add anything? We just wanted to make sure that you all knew. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I think it's gonna be wonderful. And thank you so much for town council and the mayor for looking at it and working with Holmes High School on this. I think it's gonna be great.
We wanted to make sure that the signs did not conflict with the Tourism Development Authority signs.
Okay.
And I think we've been successful in identifying appropriate locations, and, you know, the reason we're asking for the council to approve this is, you have authority to approve special signs of historic nature. So that's why this is coming to you. So thank you for considering it, because like Nancy said, I think it's gonna generate a lot of enthusiasm and pride, in the community.
And we also, didn't we have permission to disclose the sponsor of that? And I think it's important to recognize Regulator Marine as they're gonna sponsor those signs. There's 4 signs around town, so that's a substantial sponsorship on their part. And I know Holmes and D.F. Walker alumni are very appreciative of them stepping up and sponsoring that.
Nice.
The second matter that we need to discuss is the offer to purchase an old landfill. And I know Councilman Coleman had some concerns about that, and I think primarily it was the price and also more information on the layout of the land. And I think Ms. Knighton has provided us an overhead shot of the land. From what I can see, it's pretty much landlocked. It's my understanding that it was an old landfill property, and it's my understanding that if the person who's made the offer would actually be the high bidder, that he would not intend to use it for farmland. The tax value is $17,700. The offer that we've received is $15,000. Since those are so close to Councilman Coleman, And since the upset bid process kind of tests the market value, in other words, if somebody wants it for more than that, they can come and upset the bid. I'm comfortable now that we have this information, but since you raised those concerns, I'd like to defer to you to
I think
speak.
the upset bid process is a good way to go. We can always reject the offer. We don't have to take an offer if we don't feel that's an appropriate offer. This just opens up the possibility of getting more offers. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I think that's a reasonable way to go at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's important for everybody to know it's not a private sale. We're not agreeing to $15,000.
Yeah.
We're agreeing to put it up for the upset bid process at an opening bid of $15,000, and anybody interested can upset that bid if they would like. So I'm comfortable with it, and if we could just move that forward to a full vote at the next meeting, I think that would take care of that discussion item. The third discussion item that we have is establishment of a mayor's task force on litter prevention, recycling, and the environment, and it's a matter that's dear to my heart. This council has heard me express concerns a number of times about the amount of litter that we have on Highway 17 in particular, and also on our entrance and exit ramps coming into town. I know it's also dear to Councilman Coleman. It's noteworthy that in our vision plan and our vision statement, we had asked that this type of committee be set up, and the committee would, task force would look at recycling options, litter cleanup, a lot of things that we've heard from our residents that they are interested in. And since it is in our vision statement, I would just ask that we consider this at the next full meeting and vote, and I would certainly be in favor of us establishing the task force. The, yeah.
Councilman Hahn.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, in Friday's Daily Advance, they were talking about the possibility of getting inmates out of the regional jails and back on the Highway 17 and the ramps. They specifically talked about passenger tank for equipment in Camden, but I think they really meant the entire 17 corridor. So that's a good possibility that the prison system will get back into litter pickup on the highways.
Great. That would be a big
I
help.
think we'll find out. Amory, were you gonna look into
I
it?
will.
Okay.
You can tell them about the task force, sir, at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I had mentioned earlier, before the meeting got started, about how many of you would be interested in picking a on and off ramp here for us to, as the town council, to pick up trash on. I mean, Councilman Bond suggested 6 o'clock on Saturday morning. That's not gonna happen. That's not gonna
I
happen.
can get a head start.
I'd be good with that. 6 a.m., yes.
Yeah,
It might not be light yet, but maybe 7.
We'll let you guys start, and the rest of us come join you.
We'll get an early start.
Okay, yeah, y'all go ahead and get an early start.
yeah.
I'll join you about 9.
Man, you be full up by then.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
So how many of you would be interested
I'd be
in doing
interested.
that if we can agree on a time?
Yeah,
But seriously, what time do you think would be a
I
good
think
time?
9 o'clock's appropriate, Mayor.
Okay. I'm with you 100%.
Well, let's continue discussions on that. I think
We'll
that's a
have it
great
on.
idea.
Councilman Bond and I'll have it all done by then.
No, if y'all want to do that, you can.
Will
Yeah,
you be able
that-
to get the safety vests and
Yeah, I think we can make that happen.
okay.
That would be nice if we could do that. So, the fourth item on our committee reports is boards and commissions reappointments. And you had a sheet in our packet that Ms. Knighton provided us. And there she listed all of the terms that were coming up and all the appointments that were coming up. Ms. Knighton has reached out to each of those people and heard from each of those people about whether or not they would like to continue in their roles. And she's spoken to all of them but one, and that one is April Lane. And so what we're proposing is that we hold her spot open to determine her interest in it. But everyone else has indicated a desire to continue in their position. Is that correct, Ms. Knighton?
Yes.
And so we would be moving that, ask that that be moved forward to our next meeting in anticipation of approving the reappointment of all those people in the packet, and hopefully including Ms. Elaine, if Ms. Knighton's able to speak to her. So that's all that needs to be said on that. The fifth item is the lead for North Carolina Fellowship Program. Each of you will recall positively, I think, our first initial experience with the lead for North Carolina Fellowship Program was with Saoirse Scott. And I think we were all pretty unanimous and had a consensus on how wonderful a job she did in helping Anne Marie and helping this town. And I know I, for one, miss her, and Miss Knight and I have talked through no fault of our own, just missing her. A lot of our initiatives have fallen by the wayside a little bit with her not being here. Certainly COVID had an effect on it, but we really, really miss the contributions that she made. And what we are recommending is that the town participate in the lead for North Carolina Fellowship Program once again, and hopefully have someone that can attempt to fill Saoirse's shoes. The application is due in the next couple of days. So how does that work, Anne Marie, since this is a committee meeting? Do we give you some sort of consensus to move forward that application, and then at a regular meeting ratify the application or approve the application? Would that be appropriate?
It is, and actually, I think the way it would work is if we're paired and accepted, then there'll be a formal agreement that the council would need to approve.
Is that a
Okay.
2-year commitment?
It's a two-year program.
So at this time, if we just had a consensus for Ms. Knighton to follow through on that application, and then we could discuss it in more detail if we were paired with someone, and then approve or disapprove the formal agreement once we get to that point. And I think I see by everybody shaking their head that we do have a consensus, Ms. Knighton, for you to move forward with that.
It's exciting.
And I think, I mean, no offense to all of us looking at the ages across the room, somebody of that age brings a lot of excitement and energy
Absolutely.
to this room. And I certainly hope we can get paired with someone, because it was certainly a positive experience with Saoirse, and we really miss her.
She made contact with me last week and sent me a picture of her and I think a friend of hers or so. She was really enjoying where she's at and says she misses us. So,
Miss her.
and I told her that.
Is she in Eugene, Oregon still?
Yeah.
And Mayor, that completes.
Beautiful country.
Oh, is she?
Absolutely. That completes the agenda items for the administrative committee.
And that completes our agenda completely. So at this time, I will accept a motion to adjourn the meeting.
We're gonna we're recessing to tomorrow.
We've already done that.
The other one.
Gotcha.
This one is being adjourned. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
All right.